We are reading The Split History of the Civil Rights Movement, and we're going to start with the activist perspective from the Civil Rights Movement. Chapter 1, Freedom is Possible. Old ways were changing in the South, but it took the murder of a 14-year-old boy from Chicago, Illinois, to bring it to light. Emmett Till was visiting family in the small town of Money, Mississippi. One August evening in 1955, Emmett flirted with a white cashier on a dare. "Bye, baby," he said to Carolyn Bryant. 3 days later, Bryant's husband, Roy, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, showed up where Emmett was staying. Emmett's great-uncle, Moses Wright, saw the men grab Emmett and shove him in their truck. That night, August 28th, they savagely beat the teen before shooting him and dumping his body in a river. Lynchings of black men were common in Mississippi, and officials nearly always looked the other way. But Mamie Till Bradley would not let the murder of her son be ignored. She insisted on open coffin at his funeral. After Jet magazine ran photos of his mangled face, Emmett Till became a rallying cry for outraged African Americans. An all-white jury found Bryant and Milam not guilty of murder. Their trial is still remembered, however, for the testimony of Moses Wright. "There he," said the old man, pointing at the attackers. For perhaps the first time ever, a black man in Mississippi had stood up to white men in a court of law. The new, quote, Negro. For years, many black Southerners didn't question why they were treated as second-class citizens. After all, whites had the best houses and schools. They ran government and businesses. Wasn't that proof of their superiority? In truth, Southern society oppressed blacks on several fronts, by law, custom, and by violence and intimidation. Jim Crow laws kept them from attending the best schools, going to libraries, or even trying on clothes at department stores. African Americans used separate colored toilets, drinking fountains, bus stations, and more instead of the same facilities white people did. Few blacks were able to follow through on their constitutional rights to vote. Special taxes and tests kept them from registering. If those tactics didn't work, the threat of a lynching did. Blacks who insisted on improving their lives were often punished by being fired from their jobs or getting evicted from their homes. With World War II, from 1939 to 1945, however, blacks began to see their situation in a new light. African American soldiers witnessed a larger world where races freely mixed. After defeating injustice abroad, the, quote, new Negro returned ready to fight injustice at home. The Montgomery Bus Boycott. Many black workers in Montgomery, Alabama, relied on city buses to take them to their jobs. A black passenger entered the front of a bus to pay the fare. Then he or she would step off the bus and enter again from the back, where the, quote, colored seats were. Seats in the front were reserved for whites. However, if the front was full, black riders in the back were to give up their seats for whites. Rosa Parks was riding the bus home from work December 1st, 1955, when she was ordered to forfeit her seat. Instead, 42-year-old Parks defiantly slid over to the window. With that, she was arrested. 4 days later, Montgomery's buses rumbled through city streets, mostly empty. The black community had organized a boycott. They would not set foot on city buses again until they could choose their own seats. Leading the effort was Martin Luther King, Jr., a 26-year-old preacher. That night, King addressed a large meeting at the Holt Street Baptist Church. "For many years we have shown amazing patience," King told the cheering crowd. "But we come here tonight to be saved from that patience that makes us patient with anything less than freedom and justice." The boycott went on for 381 days. Some maids walked 7 or 8 miles, 11 to 13 kilometers, to work each way. Despite jeering from passers-by, boycotters squeezed into cars even after their carpool meetings spots were dynamited. After King's own house was bombed, he insisted that protesters stay committed to nonviolent methods. The U.S. Supreme Court delivered victory to the boycotters in November 1956. King and other leaders sat in the front of the first integrated bus in Montgomery on December 21st, 1956. That ride symbolized one of the first grassroots victories of the civil rights movement. Next,